My name is Casady. I am 30 years old. I live in a modest apartment in Portland. And my full-time job is making other people's milestones unforgettable. I coordinate corporate retreats, product launches, and executive offsites for people who treat me like a vendor they happen to respect. I used to think that was my quiet gift. I did not know it would also become the cleanest exit strategy one had for my own family. The night everything shifted, I was back in Seattle, sitting in my parents' living room, my laptop open on the coffee table because I thought, foolishly, that I was finalizing details for a trip we were all taking together in 10 days. My sister crossed her legs and exchanged a look with my brother, the kind of look that comes before someone delivers news they have already decided you will accept. "So we've been doing the math on the villa," Patrice said, her voice light, almost apologetic. "And it really works better with 6 people. 3 couples, 3 rooms. You'd feel weird being the only single person anyway." My brother nodded. "It's not personal, Kel. It's just logistics." I just smiled and said, "I understand." On the outside, I closed my laptop gently. On the inside, something cracked so cleanly it almost felt like relief. 10 days from that moment, she would be standing at a resort desk in Tuscany, voice climbing an octave as the clerk repeated that there was no reservation under any of their names, no record, no room, no explanation. She would text me in all caps, "Call me right now. This is your fault." And I would be sitting 800 miles away in a Barcelona cafe, with a confirmation email of my own and a reply already typed. Before I tell you how I dismantled an entire vacation with 6 mouse clicks, do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button. Because what happens next gets so much worse for them and so much better for me. Trust me, you don't want to miss where this goes. The living room smelled like the lavender candles my mother only lit when she wanted things to feel civilized. I had driven up from Portland that morning because Patrice said we needed to finalize some trip details in person. I thought she meant discussing excursions or restaurant reservations. I had a folder in my bag with printed itineraries, backup confirmation numbers, travel insurance documents for all 7 of us. My mother poured tea into cups no one would drink. My father sat in his usual chair by the window, pretending to read something on his phone. Ivan stood near the fireplace like he was about to give a toast, and Patrice perched on the arm of the sofa, her expression carefully neutral in that way that meant she had rehearsed this. "So," Patrice began, smoothing her skirt, "we've been looking at the villa layout." I waited. I had booked the villa myself. 4 bedrooms, 3.5 baths, a terrace overlooking the hills. I knew the layout better than she did. "And the thing is," she continued, glancing at Ivan, "it really works better with an even number. 3 couples, 3 bedrooms. Clean symmetry." Ivan jumped in like they had coordinated this. "You'd be the 7th wheel, Kel. Honestly, it would just be awkward for you. Derek and I in one room, Patrice and Matt in another, Mom and Dad in the third. Where does that leave you? Sitting alone at dinner while the rest of us are paired off." My mother made a small sound, something between a hum and a sigh. My father said nothing. "We thought it would be better," Patrice said softly, "if you just sat this one out. You understand, right? It's not personal. It's just logistics." Logistics. The word I had built my career on. The word they were now using to erase me from a trip I had spent 8 months planning, coordinating, and funding. I looked at my mother, waiting for her to object. She stared into her teacup. I looked at my father. He cleared his throat and said, "It does make sense, honey. You know how these things work." I didn't know how these things worked. I knew that the villa had 4 bedrooms, not 3. I knew that I had paid the deposit on my credit card. I knew that every confirmation email had gone to my inbox because I was listed as the primary contact. I knew that not one of them had asked what I wanted or how I felt or whether being uninvited from a family trip I had created from scratch might hurt. I closed my folder. I smiled the smile I used with difficult clients. "I understand," I said. Patrice exhaled in relief. I knew you'd get it. You're always so reasonable. I stood, picked up my bag, and told him I should get back to Portland before traffic got bad. My mother walked me to the door and squeezed my hand. "You're a good sister," she said. I nodded. I got in my car. I did not cry until I hit the freeway. I coordinate events for people who move millions of dollars with a handshake. Last year, I planned a 3-day executive retreat in Napa for a tech company's C-suite. 32 attendees, dietary restrictions ranging from vegan to kosher to a VP who could only eat foods that were white. Private wine tastings, team-building activities that did not feel like punishment, transportation synchronized down to the minute. The CEO sent me a bonus check with a note that said, "You made us look like we had our act together." I have orchestrated product launches where a single delayed shipment would have cost a company its quarterly earnings. I have managed logistics for conferences with 2,000 attendees, coordinating hotels, ground transportation, catering for every meal, and backup plans for the backup plans. I once rerouted an entire incentive trip when a hurricane changed course 18 hours before departure. 45 people, new flights, new hotels, new everything. I did it in 6 hours. My job is to think 5 steps ahead of disaster, to anticipate the problem before it becomes a crisis, to make sure that when someone important arrives somewhere, everything works exactly the way they imagined it would. And yet, when my family needed someone to book their anniversary dinner, they called me. When Ivan wanted to surprise his wife with a weekend getaway but did not know how to use a hotel booking site, he called me. When my parents decided they wanted to take everyone to Europe but had no idea where to start, they called me. I spent 8 months on that trip. I researched villages in Tuscany until I found one that was close enough to Florence for day trips, but far enough away to feel like an escape. I called the villa owner directly because the listing did not specify whether the kitchen had the kind of stove my mother preferred. I built a shared itinerary with options for every day, color-coded by activity level so my father could avoid anything too strenuous for his knee. I set up a group payment plan so everyone could contribute, though I floated the deposits on my own card because no one else seemed to have theirs ready. Patrice once asked me, at a family barbecue, what I did for work. I had told her a dozen times before. She nodded vaguely and said, "Oh, right, your little planning thing. That's nice. Must be pretty low stress compared to real jobs." Ivan liked to joke that I got paid to send emails and make restaurant reservations. "Basically a professional booker," he said once, laughing. "Easiest job in the world." My mother never corrected him. My father once said, "Well, it is nice that you found something you are good at." Something I am good at. As if competence were a consolation prize for not being important. 3 years ago, I told them about the conference in November. I mentioned it in August, then again in September, then once more in early October when my mother asked if I was coming home for Thanksgiving. The Apex Summit in Las Vegas. 4 days, 3,000 attendees, the single most important networking event in the corporate events industry. I had submitted a proposal to speak on a panel about crisis management in live events. If it got accepted, it would change the trajectory of my career. In late September, my proposal was accepted. I called my mother immediately. She said, "That's wonderful, honey," in the voice she used when she was doing something else while talking to me. 2 weeks later, Patrice sent a text to the family group chat. Save the date. Emma's baptism is November 14th. Can't wait to celebrate with everyone. November 14th. The exact middle day of the conference. The day of my panel. I called Patrice directly. "I can't make that date," I said. "I've told everyone about the conference for months. I'm speaking on a panel that day." She sighed, the kind of sigh that said I was being difficult. "Kelly, this is my daughter's baptism. It's 1 day. Can't you just skip the conference?" I'm literally on stage that day. I can't skip it. "So, you are choosing work over family." "I am choosing a career milestone I told you about months in advance over a date you just picked." There was a long pause. Then she said, "Well, We already booked the church. Everyone else can make it. I guess we will just have to celebrate without you. I asked if they could move it by even a week. She said the priest's schedule did not allow it. I asked if they had checked other weekends first. She said I was being selfish. I went to the conference. I delivered my panel. I got 3 new clients from the contacts I made that weekend. And I came home to a family that had already decided who I was. At Thanksgiving, my mother showed me pictures from the baptism. It was such a beautiful day, she said. Everyone was there. Well, almost everyone. Ivan said, "Yeah, we really missed you, Kel. Would have been nice if you had prioritized family for once." I tried to explain again. He cut me off. "I get it. Your job is important to you. But so is family. Or it should be." My father nodded. Patrice looked at me with something close to pity, like I had made a regrettable choice and now had to live with it. No one mentioned that I had told them the date 4 months in advance. No one acknowledged that they could have chosen any other weekend. The narrative had already been written. Kelly missed her niece's baptism because work mattered more to her than family. It became a reference point, a story they told to explain who I was. The one who does not show up when it counts. I got back to my apartment just before midnight. I made tea I did not drink. I sat on my couch in the dark for 20 minutes, staring at the city lights through my window, waiting for the hurt to fade into something I could manage. It did not fade. I opened my laptop. I created a new document. I titled it every time I didn't say anything. I started typing. The baptism. November 14th, 3 years ago. Scheduled during the conference I had mentioned repeatedly. Used as evidence that I do not care about family. Ivan's wedding. I coordinated the entire rehearsal dinner because his fiancée's family was too stressed, and he asked if I could just handle it. I paid for the bar out of pocket because he ran over budget. He thanked everyone except me in his speech. Christmas 2 years ago. Patrice gave everyone thoughtful gifts she had spent months selecting. She handed me a generic gift card to a chain restaurant and said, "I figured you are never home enough to use anything practical." My 30th birthday. No one came to Portland. My mother called at 9 p.m. and said, "Oh, honey, I completely forgot. We can celebrate next time you are in town." This summer, I helped my parents refinance their mortgage. I spent hours on the phone with lenders comparing rates, negotiating terms. My father saved $11,000. He told Ivan, "Your sister actually did something useful for once." Every family dinner where Ivan talked over me, interrupted me, or dismissed what I said with a wave of his hand. Every time Patrice made a passive comment about my lifestyle choices, meaning that I was single. Every time my mother said, "You know how your brother is," as if his cruelty were a weather pattern I should simply dress for. The trip itself. 8 months of research, coordination, and deposits. Not one thank you. Not one acknowledgement. Just, "It works better without you." I kept typing. Small things, large things, things I had convinced myself did not matter. The time Ivan borrowed $2,000 for a business opportunity and never mentioned it again. The time Patrice uninvited me from her book club because I would not fit the vibe. The time my father forgot my college graduation because he was helping Ivan move into a new apartment. I read the list when I was done. 14 single-spaced pages. 14 pages of silence I had swallowed because I thought that was what family required. That if I stayed quiet, stayed helpful, stayed small, eventually they would see my value. That love was something you earned by never asking for it. I looked at the list for a long time. Then I opened a new browser tab and logged into the travel portal where every reservation for the Italy trip was stored under my name, my email, my credit card. I stared at the screen. My hand hovered over the mouse. And I thought, what if I stopped earning it? The portal loaded slowly, the way it always did late at night.
Villa Serena in Montepulciano.
For bedrooms. Confirmation number ending in 7293. Primary contact, Kelly Casady. Payment method on file, My visa. I clicked through to the full itinerary. Flights for 7 departing SeaTac, connecting through Frankfurt, arriving in Florence. Booked under my account. Rental van, 9-passenger, reserved under my name with my driver's license on file. 3 dinner reservations in Florence, 2 wine tours, a cooking class in Siena. All confirmations sent to my email. All deposits charged to my card. I had structured it this way on purpose. My family was not organized enough to manage a group booking. Ivan would forget to pay his portion. Patrice would question every charge. My parents would get confused by the confirmation emails and call me anyway. So I had set it up the way I set up corporate retreats. 1 point of contact, 1 master account, 1 person responsible for keeping all the threads from tangling. I had not realized I was also holding the scissors. The cursor blinked in the search bar. I could cancel everything with 6 clicks. Modify booking. Select all travelers. Remove. Confirm cancellation. Request refund.
Done.
I sat there for 15 minutes, not moving. The voice in my head sounded like my mother. This is petty. This is vindictive.
This is not who you are.
But who was I, exactly? The person who absorbed every slight with a smile? The person who paid for her own exclusion and called it generosity? The person who stayed small and quiet and endlessly useful so that no one would have a reason to push her further away? I thought about Patrice's face when she said, "You'd feel weird anyway." The certainty in her voice. Not a question, not a concern. A decision she had already made about my feelings, my worth, my place. I thought about Ivan saying, "It's just logistics," as if I had not spent 8 months turning his vague idea of somewhere in Europe into a fully planned, fully funded vacation. I thought about my mother squeezing my hand and calling me a good sister while I walked out the door of a house that had just unanimously voted me off the trip I created. I thought about the baptism, the birthday, the 14 pages. My hand moved to the mouse. This was not petty. Petty was excluding someone from a trip they planned and paid for because the math worked better without them. Petty was using someone's competence against them, assuming they would absorb the loss because they always had before. This was just logistics. What I'm about to do next will burn every bridge I have left with my family. And honestly, I'm not sure I care anymore. If you're watching this thinking, please tell me she actually does it, hit that like button right now. Because she does. And it's beautiful. I clicked modify booking. I changed the passenger list to one name, Kelly Casady. I rerouted the destination, Barcelona instead of Florence. I confirmed the changes. The screen refreshed. New confirmation number. New itinerary. My name only. I closed the laptop. My hands were shaking. I did not feel victorious. I felt free. The morning of the flight, I woke up at 5. My suitcase sat by the door, packed 3 days earlier. Not the organized, overstuffed luggage of someone preparing for a family trip. Something lighter.
A week-long solo itinerari.
Comfortable shoes, layers for cool evenings, a guidebook to Barcelona I had ordered the night I changed the reservations. I made coffee and opened the family group chat. My mother had sent a message at 4:47 a.m. Everyone up? Don't want to miss our flight. Patrice replied with a selfie from her bathroom, half her face visible, caption, "Too early for this, but so excited." Ivan sent a thumbs up emoji. I typed my message carefully, the way I had rehearsed it. Have the most amazing trip, everyone. So jealous you all get to experience Italy together. Take a million pictures. Safe travels. 3 dots appeared immediately. My mother. Thank you, sweetheart. We'll miss you. Next time. Patrice. Wish you were coming. But totally understand. Understand.
As if I had chosen this.
I added a heart emoji and set my phone face down on the counter. An hour later, my mother posted a photo in the group chat. All 6 of them in the SUV my father had rented, suitcases Tetraset into the back, everyone holding coffee cups and forcing smiles at 6 a.m. Off to the airport. Italy, here we come. I reacted with the party popper emoji. I waited until 7:30, long enough for them to be through security, maybe browsing the terminal shops, definitely past the point of turning back for anything forgotten. Then I picked up my own suitcase, locked my apartment, and drove to the airport. Different terminal, different airline, different destination. I checked my bag at the kiosk. The screen asked if I wanted to upgrade to priority boarding. I selected yes. I had rerouted the refund from the canceled villa into my account 3 days ago.
Se vend-il tous en dollars?
I could afford priority boarding. I went through security. I bought an overpriced croissant I did not eat. I sat at my gate and watched the departures board. Their flight to Frankfurt was listed 4 gates down from mine. Boarding in 20 minutes. My phone buzzed. My father had posted a photo of them at their gate. Boarding soon. The adventure begins. I looked at the photo for a long time. They looked happy. Excited. Not one of them was wondering where I was or whether I was okay, or if uninviting me might have been cruel. They had already moved on, the same way they always did, as if my absence were just another detail too small to notice. I turned off my phone. I boarded my flight to Barcelona. I took my window seat, buckled in, and did not look back. The flight attendant came through with water. I took a cup and set it in the holder without drinking. The plane was half empty, the kind of midweek flight that business people take and families avoid. I had an entire row to myself. I turned my phone back on for a moment before takeoff, just long enough to see the notifications stacking up. My mother had posted an Instagram story. I opened it against my better judgment. The 6 of them at the gate, arms around each other, everyone grinning. My mother in the center, my father beside her, Ivan and his wife Derek on one side, Patrice and her husband Matt on the other. The caption: Family adventure begins. Italy airplane red heart. Family. As if the word only counted when the number was even. I swiped to the next story. A boomerang of Patrice holding up her boarding pass, the destination blurred, but the excitement clear. Another one of Ivan clinking a coffee cup against Derek's. First trip to Italy. Let's go. I closed Instagram. I muted the family group chat. I muted my mother's texts, my father's, Ivan's, Patrice's. I did not block them. I just gave myself permission not to hear them for a while. The flight attendant announced we were preparing for departure. I pulled out the guidebook I had bought 4 days ago. Barcelona, the essential guide. I had sticky-noted sections on Gaudi's architecture, tapas bars in the Gothic Quarter, day trips to Montserrat. I had always wanted to see the Sagrada Familia. When I was researching the Italy trip, I had suggested adding Barcelona as an extension just 2 days, since we would already be in Europe. Patrice had said it was too complicated logistically. I opened the chapter on La Rambla and started reading about the street performers and flower stalls. The plane pushed back from the gate. I felt the engines hum beneath me, that moment of suspension before momentum takes over. Somewhere 4 gates away, my family was doing the same thing. Buckling in, settling into seats I had selected for them months ago, probably scrolling through the itinerary I had built, the one they would arrive in Italy to discover no longer existed. I wondered when they would realize. At the layover in Frankfurt? When they landed in Florence, and no one could find the rental van reservation? Or would it be at the villa itself, standing at the reception desk with luggage and jet lag, and the growing suspicion that something had gone terribly wrong? The plane lifted off the runway. Seattle fell away beneath me, gray and green and small. I put the guidebook in my lap and looked out the window. There was weather moving in from the west, clouds massing over the Pacific. We climbed above it. The sun was sharp and clean at this altitude. I did not feel guilty. I felt, for the first time in years, like I was going exactly where I was supposed to be. I landed in Barcelona at noon local time, which meant it was 3 a.m. back in Seattle and somewhere over the Atlantic for my family. I took a taxi to the boutique hotel I had booked in the Elborn district, checked in, showered off the flight, and walked to a cafe 2 blocks away that had small tables on the sidewalk and sun that felt like forgiveness. I ordered a cortado and pan con tomate. I turned my phone back on. 43 notifications. The first message had come in 6 hours ago, while I was somewhere over Greenland. My mother, in the family group chat. Has anyone heard from Kelly? I'm trying to confirm the villa check-in time, and the email confirmation isn't in my inbox. Then Patrice, 20 minutes later. Kelly, can you resend the villa details? I don't have them. Then Ivan. Kelly, call me when you get this. The messages escalated from there. Patrice. Kelly, this isn't funny. We land in 2 hours and no one has the address. Ivan. Kelly. Call me now. My father. Kelly, call me as soon as you see this. Then a voicemail from Ivan, his voice tight with the kind of anger that came from public embarrassment. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but we just landed and nothing is working. The rental car reservation doesn't exist. The villa has no record of us. You need to call me back right now and fix this. Another voicemail from Patrice, her voice shaking. Kelly, I don't understand what's happening. They're saying the booking was canceled. Did you do this? Please tell me you didn't do this. My mother, sweetheart, please call. We're very confused and your father is getting upset. We need you to explain what's going on. Then the text started coming in individually, bypassing the group chat. Patrice in all caps. You canceled our trip? What is wrong with you? Ivan. This is beyond petty. You just ruined a family vacation because your feelings got hurt. Grow up. My father. Kelly Marie Casady, call me immediately. I sat at the cafe and read every message twice. I sipped my coffee. I watched a woman across the street arranging flowers outside a shop, the kinds of small kindnesses cities are built on. I opened my notes app and started typing responses. Careful ones. Measured ones. The kind I would actually send once I decided they had waited long enough. To my parents, I didn't ruin a family vacation. I removed myself from a trip I was no longer invited to. The reservations were under my name and funded by my account. I've redirected them. To Patrice, you said 6 worked better than 7. I agreed. I made the math work. To Ivan, it's just logistics. I saved the drafts. I set my phone to silent. I ordered another coffee and opened my guidebook. The sun was warm. The city was beautiful. And for the first time in my life, no one needed me to fix anything. I spent the afternoon walking through the Gothic Quarter, getting lost in narrow streets that opened unexpectedly into sunlit plazas. I stopped in a small bookstore and bought a novel I would probably never finish. I sat on the steps of the cathedral and watched tourists take photos and locals walk past without looking up, the way people do when beauty becomes ordinary. At 4 o'clock, I found a bench and parked a La Cittadella and opened my phone. 61 messages now. I did not read the new ones. I opened the drafts I had written that morning and revised them one last time. To my parents, I wrote, I spent 8 months planning a trip I was uninvited from at the last minute. Every reservation was under my name, funded by my credit card, organized by my effort. When you decided 6 worked better than 7, I made a decision too. I redirected the trip I paid for to a destination of my own. I hope you understand that I'm no longer available to subsidize people who don't see me as part of the family. To Patrice, I wrote, you told me I'd feel weird being the only single person. You were right. I would have felt weird funding a vacation for people who voted me off it. So, I fixed the math. 6 is an even number. So is 1. I hope the villa you didn't book works out. To Ivan, I wrote, you said this wasn't personal, just logistics. I agree. It wasn't personal when I canceled the reservations I made. It was logistics. I reallocated resources to their proper destination. Consider this my resignation from the position of family travel coordinator, unpaid problem solver, and convenient scapegoat. Effective immediately. I read each message 3 times. I pressed send on all of them at once, before I could talk myself out of it. Then I blocked their numbers. Not forever. Just long enough to finish my coffee in peace. I walked back toward my hotel and passed a small theater with a poster in the window. Flamenco show tonight at 9.
20 euros.
I went inside and bought a ticket from a woman who spoke no English and seemed delighted that I tried to speak terrible Spanish. I had dinner alone at a restaurant the hotel clerk recommended, octopus and white wine and bread so good I ordered a second basket. I walked to the theater as the sun set, the streets turning blue and gold. The flamenco was raw and precise, all controlled fury and grace. The dancer's face was impassive, her feet a drumbeat, her hands carving shapes in the air that looked like anger and looked like freedom, and maybe those were the same thing. When it ended, I walked back to my hotel through streets strung with lights. I turned off my phone completely. I went to sleep in a quiet room in a city that did not know my name, and I did not dream about them at all. So here's my question for you. What would you have done? Would you have canceled the trip?
Confronted them at the airport?
Or just let it go like you always do? Leave a comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and let's talk about it. Because the best part of these stories isn't just the revenge. It's knowing we're not the only ones who've been here.